What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another series. This video is video number 1 in building the Spotify app with Swift in UIKit. So, quick overview of Spotify if you're not familiar. It's basically a very popular music streaming app, very similar to things like Apple Music and all the other ones out there. We're going to be building out basically search, browse, playlists, most of the big features in Spotify. And what's really great is Spotify gives us a first-party API where we can get the data from them directly. So we can log users in and all that really great stuff that you expect from the app. So quick housekeeping. So we're going to be doing all of our UI programmatically. We're going to be working with UI kits. We are going to be working with their API directly, going through their docs and their direct API calls, no library, any funny business like that. So if that all sounds good to you and if you're excited for this, definitely destroy the like button before we get started. Hit subscribe if you're new to the channel and into iOS and Swift. That all said, let's get into some implementation. All right, so we're going to get started by opening up Xcode and creating a new project. We're going to stick with the app templates. I'm going to go ahead and call our project Spotify. We're going to make sure it is set to Swift for our language. Lifecycle will be UIKit. And our interface will be fully programmatic. So let's just go ahead and stick with storyboard, but we'll see how to delete it in just a moment here. Go ahead and continue and save this wherever you'd like. We will save it to our desktop. And first things first, we're going to select a simulator in our list here. I'm going to go with the 12 Pro Max. Go ahead and hit that run button to get your simulator loaded and the app running. And let's go ahead and lay the foundation for our project in this video. So we're going to be creating the files we're going to need. We're going to get rid of the storyboard and talk a little bit about architecture. So we're going to be sticking with a little bit of model view, view model, and model view controller in our project. So we're going to want to go ahead and create folders respectively for all those elements. I like doing this in the beginning of a project just to keep things organized from the get-go because things do become pretty messy pretty quick. And it just kind of suits your needs of building out something that's well, organized in terms of architectural components. So I'm just going to go ahead and create folders here for views, models, view models. We'll also need some manager objects. Let's go ahead and make that plural views. And we're also going to need another folder for anything else that doesn't fit into one of these categories, and I like to call that resources. Let's go ahead and move our app delegate and scene delegate here into resources, just like that. We're going to move our controller into view controllers. We'll move our assets, I guess, into resources as well, since it's not really a view. We're going to move our launch storyboard into views. And I'm going to go ahead and right click the main storyboard, hit delete, and we're going to say move to trash since we're cool and we're going to do everything programmatically. So now that you've gone ahead and done that, let's go into our view controller. The next thing that we're going to want to do is configure our project to boot to this controller directly now that we've gone ahead and deleted the storyboard file. So one thing that you notice is once you move stuff around, Xcode might start giving you issues. So go ahead and close Xcode and reopen if it's not syntax highlighting. It just does that time and time again. I've noticed it does that often when you delete the storyboard, but just bear with it here. Once you open it on up, go ahead and hit Command B and you should get your syntax highlight back. I'm going to go ahead and set a title on here of home. And I'm just going to give it a background color of red. Now, before we go ahead and give this a run, because we deleted the storyboard, we need to open up our info plist and find the entry for main storyboard file and go ahead and hit backspace to delete it. You also need to open up this application scene manifest and keep opening these little arrows up, these collapsed boxes until you get to the last one and delete this last entry where it tells you the storyboard name. Now that we've deleted those references, we do need to configure which controller pops up when our app first launches. So we're going to jump into the app delegate here. I'm going to go ahead and create a property for the window. And this window is going to be optional. This is the window that gets created when our application loads up. So here we are going to say let window is a UI window. We're going to create a window with a frame, which is the entirety of the screen's bounds. So we'll say screen.main.bounds, just like that. Now on this window, we're going to say window make key and visible. And we're going to say self.window is window. Now this window needs to have one root view controller, which is going to be, what you see. And we only have one view controller in the app at the moment called view controller. So I'm just going to assign it just like that. And one more thing we need to do before we go ahead and give this a run, jump into your scene delegates, and in this first function here, get rid of all those comments and paste in what we did in the other file. And the one change you're going to make here is this guard let underscore that's discardable. Go ahead and change this to window scene. And you're going to want to go ahead and create this UI window with a window scene. So I believe, yep, there's a window scene right there. Go ahead and pass that in and hit Command B to build your project and hit Command R to give it a run. And you should see that your app loads up to the red screen, which is your red view controller, just like that. So we've gone ahead and successfully got rid of that pesky storyboard since we're going to do everything in code. Let's go ahead and create a bunch of stubbed out files for what we will need as we progress through this series. So first things first, we're going to want to rename this view controller because it's called a view controller and it's pretty ambiguous of what it is. So what we're going to need in the core app is basically 3 tabs, which implies we're going to want a tab bar controller. So I'm going to create a new file. It's going to be a Cocoa Touch class that is subclassing UI tab bar controller. I'm going to go ahead and call this tab bar view controller. Let's go ahead and create it just like that. And then in the tab bar, the first tab here, I'm going to go ahead and call it home view controller. That's probably a much more appropriate name than just view controller. We're going to create another file here. It's going to be a Cocoa Touch class again. The second tab in our app in Spotify is search. So we're going to call it search view controller. And this guy should inherit from UI view controller, not tab bar controller again. Go ahead and create that and give it a save. Let's continue along here. The third tab is basically our library where we can see, the artists that we have saved as well as playlists. So go ahead and create it and save it. And what I like to do is take these 4 controllers and put them into their own group. Since they're kind of the core of the app, I like calling them core, just like that. The next thing we're going to want is a bunch of other view controllers because we are going to want a bunch of other peripheral things in our app aside from the core UI. So let's go ahead and just create a bunch of the ones off the top of my head and we'll adjust as we build on out. So we do need to go ahead and allow the user to log in somehow. So we're going to want a auth view controller. This is where they will be kind of signing in with the API. We're also going to want to show a screen when the user first opens the app. So I'm going to go ahead and call this, let's say, welcome view controller, kind of the welcome screen if they're not signed in. We are also going to want a settings screen of sorts. So I'm going to go ahead and we could call it a settings controller or profile. I think we'll keep those separate. So I'm going to go ahead and say settings view controller. Let's go ahead and create that as well. So you kind of have a vibe already of I'm creating a controller for every screen I think we're going to have in the app. So let's continue along on that trend and create a profile. And let's see, what else do we want? We're going to want a player, to see like what the current playing song is. So we're going to want a player view controller. And you can quickly see how this project is going to get pretty large. I'm going to try to keep it fairly focused because I want to finish it. But let's continue. Let's see, the next one, we're going to want a playlist view controller, which is going to show a single playlist, shocker. And let's see, so we've got search, we've got home, we've got the library. I believe that's really the majority of what we're going to want. We could potentially also have a search results view controller since we are going to be, searching. So we'll say search results view controller. And that should probably do it for the search results that we are going to want in, or rather the view controllers that we're going to want in the app. So let's go ahead and close that. And let's start putting some other stuff in here. So we're going to want a bunch of managers as well. And managers are objects in the app that allow us to perform operations across the whole app. So things like auth management, right? Make sure the user is logged in. So the first one we're going to create, you guessed it, is a auth manager. And this object will be responsible for making sure the user is signed in, signing them in, all that good stuff. The next thing we're going to put together is another one called API caller. you should, fairly well understand what that's going to do. And I'm a pretty big fan of haptic feedback in an app, those little vibrations. I'm also going to go ahead and create a haptics manager. We're going to say this is a haptics manager. And let's see what else we would want. So let's just stick with this for now. I don't think we're going to want really too much more in here. So that's managers. Now, view models will really depend on the views that we create. So I'm not going to put stuff in here just yet, but I will start putting in some model stubbed files. So we are going to want a model for something, for example, like a playlist. That'll definitely be a model in our app. We're also going to want a model for a audio track, which represents, a single song. I like calling it audio track since it's a bit more technical versus a song. We're also going to want a model for an artist. So I'm really kind of just guessing off, honestly, at the top of my head of what we're going to want. And I suspect we're going to want to, tweak these as we go along. So an artist, we're going to want a profile perhaps for the current user. So I'm going to say user profile. And then we're going to have a bunch of API responses as well, but let's keep it simple and stick with that. And in views, I guess we're going to want some views too, but I'm not going to create these yet since I don't really know. But if you go ahead and hit Command V, you'll notice an error in your app now because we got rid of that view controller file. And we no longer have that view controller class. What we're going to say here is when the app launches, what we basically want to do is, for now, we are going to show the tab bar controller, just like that. And this tab bar controller will be responsible for setting up its tabs. So let's do that in the scene delegate as well there and the app delegate. Hit Command B, and you'll notice that your build errors go away. Go ahead and hit Command R to build and run, and you'll see this black empty kind of screen with a tab bar down here. So let's go ahead and let's set up our tab bar controller at minimum. So we're going to jump into core and tab bar controller. Let me move it up so it's a little more organized. Now in this tab bar controller, what do we need to do? We essentially need to set the view controllers for this tab bar controller. So I'm going to create the controllers here. So we'll say the first VC is home view controller. The second one is going to be the search view controller. And the third one here is going to be the library view controller. Now, each of these view controllers is going to have a large title. So there is a property off of, I believe it's navigation bar, or I guess it's navigation item, and it's large title display mode. We'll say always. I'm going to copy and paste that for the other two controllers as well. Just make sure you update the property. We're going to want 3 navigation controllers now. So I'll say nav1 is a UI navigation controller. Now, if you're not familiar with navigation controllers, it's basically a controller in which you have, a title bar, a navigation bar, and you can, navigate between other controllers horizontally, hence the name. And now that we've created these 3 nav controllers, I believe there's a property we need to set on each of these called, on their navigation bar, prefers large title, something along those lines. Here we go. Prefers large titles will be true. Go ahead and paste that a few times for nav1, nav2, and nav3. Let's go ahead and line break that to keep it organized. And finally, now that we have these set up, we can say on this tab bar controller, set your view controllers, and it's going to be nav1, nav2, and nav3. Animated, you can go ahead and say false. And let's see, we're also going to want titles for our controllers here. So let's go ahead and do that. VC1, we're going to say its title is going to be browse. VC2's title is going to be, let's make sure we spell title correctly, going to be search. And VC3's title is going to be library. Let's go ahead and give this a run, and let's make sure that we're starting to see some of our screens. So there's our red screen, which is our home. We have the navigation bar item title at the bottom here too, home, search, and the library. They're still black because we're not setting a background color. Let's go ahead and set a background color in each of these controllers to a system background. So our app will support light mode and dark mode, which is pretty great. So we're going to use system background. Let's get rid of this comment block since we don't need it. Let's continue along. Let's get rid of this comment block since we don't need this either. And we're going to paste that guy in as well. Go ahead and give it a run one more time. And let's make sure we're now seeing our titles at the top. So there's home, there is search, and there is library. Now you'll notice that we don't have tab bar icons here. And the reason that is because we haven't set them yet. So let's go back to our tab bar controller. And we want to set tab bar items for each of these nav controllers. So I'm going to say nav1 dot tab bar item is going to be a UI tab bar item. And we're going to go ahead and create this with a title, image, and tag. So the title for the first one here will be home. The image is going to be a system image, which is a bunch of built-in images, something called SF symbols. There's a tool you can download from Apple's own website called SF Symbols, which is Apple's library of icons. I'm opening it up right here, and you can see there's a bunch of icons you can pick from. They're all really great. So we'll be using that a lot in this series since they're kind of built in for us, so why not? Let's go ahead and copy and paste that for nav 2 and 3. This next one is going to be search, and this last one will be library. I think there's an image called magnifying glass. We're going to find out in just a moment. Actually, the smart thing to do would probably be to look in here. So we're going to search for magnifying glass, and there indeed is one. And I think there should also be a library or book icon or something we can use for library. So I've got book here. We can probably, let's go ahead and use, I actually don't like any of these. Let's look for a music note. We can use one of these. Let's use this one right here for our library tab icon, which is this third one here. And we already called it library. Go ahead and give it a run. And you should now be seeing your 3 tabs at the bottom with their respective images. So looking pretty great. Now, one other thing you might notice is right now we open the app, it looks like we come straight into here, but we probably want to be showing the welcome screen since we're not logged in yet. So I'm briefly going to set that up. And then in the next video, we're going to get into authentication, moreover, signing the user in. So I'm going to jump into the Auth manager file that we created, and we are going to create an object with it, which is called Auth manager. Now we're going to use this as a singleton across our app. So we're going to create an instance, which is static, called Auth manager. We're going to privatize the initializer. Now there is going to be a Boolean on here, which is a computed property of is signed in. And for now, we're just going to return false. And we're going to probably want a few different properties on here that we want to be able to get. So, and they're all going to be private. So I'm going to say private var access token is an optional string. I'm just going to return nil for all of these for now. We're also going to want a refresh token here. And if you're not familiar with what any of this stuff is, this access and refresh business, don't worry about it. We're not really too concerned with it yet. We're going to do that in the next video, but I'll explain it all in the next video. We're also going to want an expiration date. We can call this a token expiration date, and we can go ahead and return nil. And then finally, we'll add one last one here. We'll say private var should refresh token, which is a bool. And we'll just say false for now. And now what we can actually do, which is pretty cool, is if you recall in the app delegate, we are basically saying, make the tab bar controller your root for the window right here. But instead, what we can do is we can say if, auth manager dot shared is signed in, go ahead and use the tab bar controller. Otherwise, what we can do is we could use the welcome controller. So we're basically just adding a pretty simple, trivial if-else check here. And in this case, we're going to say this is going to be a navigation controller, which is going to be nesting the welcome view controller as its child. And don't forget that you need to copy this and also move it into your scene delegate here, where we're assigning it the root view controller, just like that. And just for the sake of having something on the welcome screen, let's go ahead and open up controllers, other, and welcome view controller. I'm going to get rid of this commented out code, which is useless. We're going to provide a title in here called, let's call it Spotify. And I'm going to say the view's background color is a system green. And let's go ahead and give this a run. We should see a green screen now with a Spotify title at the top, just like that. So looking pretty great. The app launched and basically said, okay, we're not signed in, so show this as your root. The one thing I'm going to go ahead and tweak here a little bit in the app delegate, I don't like that it's using the small title at the top. For the navigation controller here, which is nesting the welcome controller, we're going to go ahead and tweak two things on here fairly quickly. We'll say navvc, and I'm going to say navvc dot view controllers dot first, and I'm going to say its navigation item large title display mode is always. And I'm also going to say on this nav VC that it prefers on its navigation bar a large title. Large titles are kind of more first party. They just look a lot nicer in my personal opinion, which is why I'm very biased to have them always. Don't forget to add this into your scene delegate as well. Otherwise, you're going to run into some weird issues. Nav VC. And let's get rid of this guy here. Let's assign to our newly created navigation view controller. Go ahead and give that a run one more time. We should see Spotify in big letters just like that. Awesome, so looking great. So just a quick recap. We set up our project. We stubbed out a bunch of files. We got rid of the storyboard. Everything is looking pretty good. In the next video, we're going to explore the API a little bit, as well as set up the ability for the user to sign in. I've set up a kind of a test user for iOS Academy that we're going to be working with through the duration of all these videos. So if that all sounds good to you and you haven't liked the video already, make sure to do so. Leave a comment if you're confused about anything. Love hearing from you guys. And of course, subscribe for the rest of this series and other Swift videos as well. So thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.